Hi everybody and welcome to the Spring 2012 MEDT 3401 course. In this first video I'd like to just talk a little bit about who I am and just get that out of the way, okay? In preparation for this question I've made a pie chart. I don't always know who I am, and I do have a history of being a K-12 teacher. I was an English teacher for 2 years, and then I went over into Spanish and did Spanish teaching for 4 years. But as an English teacher, we like pre-writing and mapping things out before we talk or before we write. So that's what I've got here. This pie chart's not exhaustive, and I'll try not to bore you with it too long. But obviously I am your teacher, your instructor this semester, and I've been teaching online for about 4 years now, and I've really been drawn to it for about 5. I first taught online for the Texas Virtual School about 4 or 5 years ago. I taught 1 semester, got trained extensively for more than a year, and then did kind of a student teaching situation, and then I actually taught a semester for them. And then this opportunity came up here at the University of West Georgia to teach technology in the classroom. And so I've been here since about 2007. But prior to that, I taught middle school and high school. I taught English and then Spanish. Right now I'm actually a doc student in the school improvement program at the University of West Georgia. So my mind is awash with all kinds of things related to school reform, what's going on in schools, the problems that schools face. So that's what I'm currently studying. I'm in my first year of that program. Hope to graduate in the spring of 2014 if I get a dissertation written and approved by that time, and it takes a lot of organization to get that done. So that's where I'm at. This semester I'm taking 2 classes. One is my qualitative methods class, so I'm learning how qualitative studies are set up, and it's going to be a challenging semester. And then there's another sort of complementary class that's also about qualitative methods. So there's basically 2 classes I'm taking this semester while you're taking a class. My doc program is actually 98% online. We have face-to-face components as well. But I'm also not just an online teacher, but I'm an online student. So I know what it's like. I know how overwhelming it can be. And I know what it's like to work in groups online. And I actually, this semester, am sort of sparing you from real online group work. I've been trying over the past year. I've actually been trying it the whole time I've been here. But this semester, the most of your group work, the most group worky kind of thing you're going to have going on is online discussions. So, but we'll talk about that somewhere else. You'll read about that somewhere else. In my role as an instructor at the university, I don't just teach classes, but I try to behave like a tenure-track faculty person. So I also do research, I do presentations, and I guess the area where I'm doing my most research and sort of projects on the ground is in the area of K-12 online learning. I'm not necessarily an advocate for it. I don't necessarily try to push it, but I'm there kind of watching it and involved in it because, it's K-12 online learning. It's mostly happening at the secondary level from 6th to 12th grade, but it's slowly trickling down into elementary school level as well. So as this new innovation comes up, people need to be paying attention to how you do it well. If you're going to do it, how do you do it well? So I'm currently working with a school district, Henry County Schools. They're thinking about, they're exploring the possibility of opening a fully online high school, much like they've done in Gwinnett County, has a fully online high school. Henry County's doing that, so I get to be part of that team and go over there and meet with people and talk about that. And just, I'm learning more than I'm actually contributing, I think. So I'm working with them. I'm also working with several review projects. One of them is with Henry County Schools, where we have graduate students conduct course reviews of blended middle school courses and fully online courses. We just started up another project where we have graduate students conducting course reviews of Georgia Virtual School courses. And I'm actually a course reviewer for the Texas Virtual School Network, so that's where my interest in that kind of originated about 5 years ago. So I've been doing that and just kind of continuing that work. And then there's all kinds of other stuff that I do, but I don't want to bore you too much. I'm the mother of 3 children, Caleb, He's my stepson. He's 18 and he's at UGA. He's a freshman there. We're trying to keep his average above that Hope minimum so that he keeps that Hope scholarship, or he's going to come back home and live in the basement. He just barely squeaked by this past fall semester, but I think he's going to do better this semester. You know, being a freshman, it's a little bit shocking to go from the high school, tightly locked down, you know, controlled bell ringing schedule to the sort of freedom of living on your own, kind of, and having to get yourself to class. So we're hoping he'll do better. Willow's a third grader at Carrollton Elementary, and Jack's a first grader at Carrollton Elementary. I also have a husband, Jason. He also works at the university. And then I have this other little piece of my pie. It's called Everything Else, and there I put the word dreams, because I know I have some dreams in my life, things that I, you know, dreams, things that I would like to achieve that are beyond just the workaday, career type things. Most of my dreams revolve around my kids at this point, but I know that I also need to have dreams for myself. I'll figure out what those are after I graduate in 2014, I guess. No, some of my dreams do involve, you know, the things that I'm working on, for sure. I'm really interested in education. It's a fascinating field that we're all in. You're in it too. And there's just endless possibilities for the things that we can explore and work on and do to challenge ourselves with it. And so that's me. I've now talked for 6.5 minutes about me, and you know, maybe that's necessary that I ramble about that. So I have a couple of other guiding questions I want to talk to you about in this sort of class welcome video. I'm going to shut this door a little bit. You can see my little mess on the back of my door. What am I like as an instructor? Well, I'm really organized and I'm pretty responsive. I usually get back to your messages if you have questions, phone calls, things like that. I usually get back to things within 24 hours. Try to be even more responsive than that. Sorry. In the past, you know, I always said you should message me inside of CourseIn, because that's where the course is. That's where I can check on things immediately. But over the last summer, I did get a smartphone. So if you want to be a squeaky wheel, I recommend that you email me in the class. That's always a good idea. But that you also, if you want to send me an email outside through the smartphone, khewitt@westguide.edu or khewitt@gmail.com, that'll work as well. You can also text me. My number is 678-310-4425. You can text me. You can also call that number. You know, whatever. You can call that number anytime. Like I tell you, you can't call me past 8. You can call that number anytime, because I will turn my ringer off at night. I won't answer it after 8 p.m. But it's fine to call, leave a message or whatever. So that's how you can get a hold of me. So I'm pretty responsive. I'm pretty organized. I believe that, you know, the online environment gives us more flexibility than the face-to-face environment in some ways, and that we should take advantage of that. So when you read the syllabus, you'll see that a lot of assignments in the class have a built-in flexibility, which is that if you don't get them in by the deadline, you have another week, except in the last part of the class. The very last deadline is the exception. So read the syllabus, but you have a week after the deadline to get those assignments in with only a 20% penalty, and that's if I assess the penalty. I frequently don't. If you get that work into that Dropbox, I'm so happy that I usually don't even take 20% off. Okay? That's the secret for the people that continue to watch this video. So I feel like it's okay to have that flexibility. There's the deadlines there to get you to try to get your work in on time, but there's usually a week buffer there to help you. I don't have a problem doing that. I don't take it personally if your personal life becomes difficult or the scheduling becomes hard to balance out and you weren't able to meet a deadline. You know, some people argue that a teacher or an instructor's job is to hold you to those deadlines and penalize you if you don't make it. But other people argue that in the real world, deadlines are not always absolute. Sometimes there is flexibility. Sometimes you can go to your boss and say, look, realistically, I wasn't able to finish this work. Can I have another day? So just, you know, approach me like you're an adult. You know, keep me informed. However, you know, like if you turn in something late in the Dropbox, you might write a little note about why it's late, you know, what happened or whatever. But don't, I'm not holding it against you. I don't take it personally, and I don't look down on you if you avail yourself of the built-in flexibility. It's there to help you so that, you know, we can all kind of relax a little bit. So I do like being able to do that in my course. And that's part of what we call a kind of a competency-based model. I mean, that's not really necessarily, that's not the definition of competency-based learning, but I like to think that my course has a little bit of the competency-based philosophy in it, in that, you know, you kind of get to go at your own pace a little bit. We do have these deadlines. We do have a semester that ends at a certain time, so we kind of want to march through and honor those deadlines as best we can. But at the same time, we have room for flexibility. So I talked a little bit, or was that in another version of this video, about protecting yourself in the mountain of content. I think it was another version. In the online class, here's the risk of one of the biggest risks of the online class. Any online class, you can quickly become overwhelmed by all of the work that is there. So you have to learn how to shield yourself from it. You know, if you have a checklist for module, or you have the course plan, or you have whatever it is that shows you that mountain of content, either for the given module of time, the little couple of weeks, or for the 15-week semester, you need to learn how to not get panicked. We'd all get panicked if we thought, you see it all at once and you think you have to do it all right now. You don't do work like that. You work in sort of a linear fashion, or maybe sort of a spread out linear fashion, or maybe you're doing multiple things, you know, at once. But you can only do so much at once. Recognize that, you know, do your best and hide the rest of it from yourself. So, for example, if this is your to-do list, then you might read the list once, say I'm going to read it once, I'm not going to panic, and then I'm going to only look at this part, and I'm going to work on this part. Or I'm going to read it once, and I'm going to quickly say, okay, how much time do I have to do this whole list? I know this is sort of basic time management stuff, but it needs to be said. A lot of you are still young, you're still 20, not all of you, some of you are older than that, but some of you are 20, 21, and when I was 20, 21, I had no clue about this stuff. So you read your list. You know, you have 2 weeks maybe to do all this stuff. Maybe this is like a module checklist. And then you just quickly jot out some potential times by which you want to achieve the various things in the checklist. And then you stop worrying about most of the checklist and you just work on the first part. And then you work on the second part. And really, you have to learn how to protect yourself from the big mountain, because, you know, in a face-to-face class, that's what the teacher's doing. They're standing up there talking to you, and they just reveal a little bit at a time. And that's why you feel a little less overwhelmed, because they're more in control of that. In the online environment, you're more in control of what you see. And so you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware that you're going to panic unless you realize part of your job, part of the stepping up in the online class, is that you actually have to learn how to calm down a little bit and protect yourself and take it a step at a time. It really is a step at a time a lot of the time. In this class, I make announcements. I don't know if I address this anywhere in my class, so I thought I would add this today. I make regular announcements. By the end of the semester, I probably will make 30 announcements. That's kind of my average. So every week, probably you'll see about 2 announcements coming through email. So what I do is I make an email in CourseDen message, and I also use the announcements feature. So a lot of the time when you log into the class, it'll pop up, you know, as an announcement. It'll have the title and then whatever is in it. Sometimes I embed a video, like this one. I try to keep them shorter than this one, I promise, but in the beginning of the semester, they're going to be a little bit longer. So I embed a video, and I maybe have some text or something, or link out to things. So you'll see that duplicated as an email message and as an announcement, because I want you to see it. Okay? So your overarching questions as you move through the course. What are the things that you should be asking yourself as you move through the course? Well, first of all, hopefully you have a few questions that you have crafted that you can ask yourself and kind of let yourself focus on. But I'm going to give you a few suggestions for things that you might think about as you move through the course. And I have a list written here. It's not exhaustive. I kind of typed it up quickly. I could probably make the list better. So you can help me make that list better. You know, make your own list and you know, make it better. So one question, that kind of an obvious question, is how can I incorporate technology to improve my classroom and the learning in it? That's one of the big questions that this class is trying to get you to ask. What are the limits or obstacles to my integrating technology? Now, I don't really want to focus on the limits or obstacles, but at the same time, we need to admit that there's a lot of limitations to technology integration. Not every school has a climate where it's encouraged. Not every school's got the resources for it. Some of the limitations are within yourself as a person. Some of the obstacles or limitations, well, you know, they're there. I just need to acknowledge that they're there, you know, and I recognize that. So a lot of the things that you do this semester, they may not work in every school. They certainly may not work for every age group. So with that in mind, you kind of need to ask yourself, how can I use this or adapt this or use something similar to this in my future situation? You know, and a lot of the things that you learn today may be obsolete in 5 years, and that's the way it goes. But part of this class is just learning how to do things with technology, because a lot of it translates into other types of technology. So, you know, you learn concepts here that can translate into future specific technologies. So we use specific technologies that become obsolete in 5 years, that's fine. You're learning about a lot of concepts that do translate and will remain constant even in 5 years. Are there ways you can use technology as a teacher? Administrative uses. Now these are some of my favorite ways to use technology. I love administrative uses of technology. So the harder challenge is, how do we come up with ways for students to use it? How do we get it into students' hands? You know, I'm such an administrator in some ways. I love using things like wikis and Google Calendar and things like that to stay organized. But the harder question is, how do you get students to use technology? How do you get it into their hands, out of your control and in their control? And that's the scary thing for teachers, because things can get chaotic. Another question you might ask is there value in students using technology? I encourage you to question the core, you know, rationale behind this whole course. This course is trying to push you into using technology to an extent. You know, there's a persuasive element saying, do it, integrate technology. But hopefully you'll come up with a rationale for doing it. You know, why should I use it? Under what circumstances is this of value? What age group of student would benefit from this particular tool? So you're going to want to ask yourself a lot of these questions. Because it's an online class, I'm not going to be there all the time to remind you to ask yourself these questions. I'll try my best. And then the last question I put is, how do I add this concept of technology integration to the already complex, nearly impossible mix that is teaching? You know, it's just another thing that they're asking me to do. So that's a question that you will want to ask yourself this semester. Through the class discussions this semester, I hope to give a fairly well-rounded view of technology integration. There's going to be a discussion every module. So we have 7 modules. We have the orientation module, and then modules 1 through 6, so that's 7 total. Through those discussions, I hope to both encourage and try to persuade you to use technology and to dissuade you. That is, I hope to present it as something debatable, because I want you to jump into the fray and ask yourself, why are we doing this? You know, is this of value to my situation? You know, technology integration, this idea has been pushed on schools, not just by educators who are concerned with what's best for the student at the student level, but it's being pushed on the school system by outside forces, market forces, and, you know, different interests outside of schools. So, you know, it's good to be aware of that it's not always the best thing in every situation, and I certainly don't feel that way. So we'll have more time to talk about that. My video is almost 20 minutes here, so I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but I'm willing to admit that it's not always the best thing, but at the same time, there are situations where it's a good idea. So be questioning it constantly. I hope that you'll jump into the class discussions and be open-minded and try to push yourself to figure out, you know, the best answers to these complex questions that we have facing us as educators today. Nobody's got the answers, you know, any more than you do, okay? And we all just need to jump in and do our best to face these questions together. All right, so with that said, that's my class welcome. I hope that we all have a great semester. Down below, I'll talk a little bit more about sort of nuts and bolts types of things, the course plan and the syllabus. So you might want to get those documents open in front of you before you start those videos, and then they'll make a little bit more sense. I do hope they'll be shorter. Syllabus video, well, we'll see. I think the course plan video should be no more than about 5 minutes. The syllabus should be no more than about 5 or 10. All right. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you this semester.